Hello and welcome to Follow the Money. I'm Gerg Cahiles. Join us as we explore the tools and insights you need to jumpstart your financial journey. As global economic tensions reshape markets, the Philippines stands at the crossroad between opportunity and disruption. From U.S. China tariffs to the rise of venture capitalism in Asia, how can Filipino businesses thrive in this changing world? Today, we gain global perspective from someone who's worked both in diplomacy and international finance. Our guest is an international venture capitalist, best-selling author, and public servant with deep ties to Asia and the Philippines and Silicon Valley. The only Republican ambassador to receive the Distinguished Foreign Service Award from the Congressional Black Caucus, former U.S. Ambassador Gregory Sladen. Welcome to the Follow the Money, Ambassador.
Thank you, George. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, firstly, I would like to ask you about your assessment on the Trump administration's reciprocal tariff policy. I'm wondering if you agree to this, and who are the biggest winners and losers to this setup?
Yes, excellent question. I am a lifelong Republican, conservative Republican. I am not in agreement with the tariff policy. Tariffs are essentially taxes, and taxes are regressive. They don't cause growth, they retard growth. And what we've seen is a great disruption in global trade. The dollar is down, the stock markets have been hammered around the world, especially in the United States. And you see President Trump walking this back now because he recognized, maybe this was a mistake, and he's, I believe, walking it back. And I think that's the right thing to do.
But do you think this will be a long-term policy of the Trump administration, or he's just being a businessman who's trying to have transactions with different countries?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that strong tariff policy was tried before in the 1930s, and it's one of the things that led to the Great Depression. So I certainly hope that wiser heads prevail within the Trump administration, and we go back to what is more traditional Republican policy: low taxes, strong trade, strong dollar. And that not only benefits us, but benefits our partners like the Philippines.
And I think President Trump is now taking the toll of what he did.
Yes.
As the survey results, his popularity is declining.
Way down. In fact, it turns out that after 100 days in office, President Trump is the least popular president in 70 years. And that's going back a long time. Now, President Trump is aware of that, and I think that's one of the reasons you see him recalibrating a little bit, releasing the tariff pressure, saying, I'm going to negotiate and all that. So, okay.
Anyway, let's go to the Southeast Asian region. So,
yes,
how have the U.S. China trade tensions and Trump-era tariffs affected Southeast Asian markets and, well, the Philippines in particular?
Yes.
Especially on the issue on chain diversification.
Correct. Well, you saw some manufacturers and producers, multinationals, of course, Americans, beginning to move out of China, right? To India, to Vietnam, and to the Philippines. And as they should. It's just wise. I'm not being anti-China. It's just wise to diversify your supply chain. And a place like the Philippines, where you have a lot of good young talent, English speakers, obviously a lot of advantages here in the Philippines. This tariff disruption has really caused a lot of investments to stop, have caused a lot of consternation in boardrooms. And that's unfortunate because, in my humble opinion, it's important for America and the Philippines and Japan and our other trading partners around the world to draw closer together, not further apart.
And as you mentioned, this is like an opportunity for the Philippines to grab and grow its economy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm just wondering if, in your perspective, is the Philippines ready to absorb that manufacturing influx probably from other countries as they diversify? Is the Philippines ready for that?
Not as ready as I believe it could be or should be. I mean, there's a lot of advantages in the Philippines. Again, one of the main advantages is a young population, a growing population. You look at Japan, you look at Korea, you look at China itself, demographic disasters in each one of those countries. Taiwan, I mean, the list goes on. right? Here in the Philippines, you've got a robust growth, young population, great academics, for not as maybe as many as there should be, but a lot of fine academic institution, highly educated workforce that is eager and ready to work. That's a beautiful thing. Now, infrastructure, obviously, could be better, should be better. There are some things the government could do to make the Philippines more accessible for manufacturers who want to diversify their supply chain.
But do you think this diversification will be like a long-term or a short-term thing that the Philippines should be ready of, or something to that effect?
Right. Well, you're asking me to look into the future, and that's hard to do. But my guess would be it'll be a long-term. Manufacturers around the world have seen that having their entire supply chain in China is dangerous, right? There's a lot of risk there, the COVID shutdown.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime you've got a communist dictatorship, they can basically decide whatever they want. And the big difference is, yes, Trump made a mistake with the tariffs, but very quickly he listened to the population, he listened to the voters, and he's walking it back. I don't want to ding any particular country, but Vladimir Putin, let's ding them for a minute. They invaded Ukraine. You know, that was Putin's desire. Nobody else in Russia, and I know that country pretty well, nobody wanted to invade Ukraine except Vladimir Putin, and he doesn't care. You know, you don't have to worry when you're a dictator. You don't have to worry about what people think or what people, voting. There is no real voting in Russia. So my hope is that the Philippines is ready. The Philippines obviously has a vibrant dictatorship, vibrant democracy, and I know you've got elections coming up here on May 12th. So really hope and pray those good results in those elections.
Well, speaking of opportunities, I'm wondering what opportunities are you seeing in terms of as U.S., the couples with China?
Yes.
What are these opportunities that you're seeing?
Well, the U.S. is not going to stop importing, huge amounts of items. There's so many manufacturing items that the U.S. just can't be competitive in anymore because our salary structure is well above, and that's good. It's good that average U.S. worker makes $60,000, $65,000. That's a lot of money, right? So, but that means that there's a lot of, especially products that can be made here in the Philippines with good paying jobs and very effectively, and those are the jobs, in my humble opinion, that the Philippines should be targeting, not to mention services. Obviously, the Philippines is already an outsourced business leader in many areas. I mean, most of the time when I call an 800 number for customer service, I end up speaking Tagalog with somebody on the phone, so which is great. And that's the type of thing, you see, Filipinos I've really seen are very entrepreneurial. Not everybody, and it's true about all populations, not everybody is an entrepreneur. But what I've really seen in the Philippines, a large percentage of Filipinos are entrepreneurial, and that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about LAIC, where I'm a distinguished visiting professor. They're teaching, there's a course in entrepreneurship, but not talking about that specifically, talking about general. I think this is one of the brightest areas for the Philippines as they are kind of natural entrepreneurs. Need some training, need some experience, that's good, and then they can successfully build their own companies and be entrepreneurs within larger companies. That's the point about entrepreneurship. It's needed even in the largest company because innovation is the only successful, competitive advantage any company can have.
Well, speaking of Filipino entrepreneurs, you spoke with them.
Yes.
And what do you think of the prospects of, having more entrepreneurs? What is the general sentiment that you got from talking to them?
Yes, very positive, very positive. I mean, and this stretches back, I spent 3 years here in the Philippines, tatlong año, matagal na, long time ago, right, in the 80s. But I always saw that there was entrepreneurs in, many different industries got started. I mean, I happen to know some of the wealthiest Filipinos, and they're entrepreneurs. It wasn't that they inherited it all from their granddad. They actually started new companies, and they were very successful. And that's super important because there just aren't enough formal sector jobs for all the Philippine graduates. There aren't. Even in the United States, something like 70% of the jobs in the United States are provided by companies of less than 30 or 40 people. In other words, small companies, entrepreneurial companies. And that's the way you create full employment.
And currently, I just want to know, what role should ASEAN nations, including the Philippines, play in global trade strategy amid the ongoing issues, tariff problems in a worldwide scale?
Yes.
What is?
Well, ASEAN is a very important, bloc. I'd like to see ASEAN become stronger in terms of intra-ASEAN trade. Right? That's something that's a little bit of a weakness there. Like in the EU, you see a tremendous amount of intra-EU trade. France trading with Italy, trading with, others, and that's important. Germany. You don't see as much there. You don't see as much Indonesia trading with the Philippines. There are some, but it's relatively small. I think there are huge opportunities there for Filipino entrepreneurs to serve other ASEAN nations with products and services the Philippines specializes in, especially English. I mean, you have people in Indonesia who speak English, but not many.
Yeah.
And that's the world's fourth largest country. It's a little bit bigger than the Philippines. Tremendous opportunities there.
It's like creating a stronger Asian market.
Correct.
And how are we gonna do this? I mean, in terms of, it's easy to say that, let's move somewhere else, find other markets. But what are the key factors to be able to achieve that?
Well, good question. I think the first thing is growing a successful company here in the Philippines. You don't start a company usually in America and say, okay, I'm going to export to Switzerland.
Yes.
That's not how it works, right? You grow a successful company in the domestic market, and then you say, oh wow, there's a real opportunity here. Let's go abroad to a nearby country where they don't have this product or this service, or maybe they have them, but they're fairly weak, right? Let's go with a stronger product and a better cost base. And that's, again, I want to go back to Filipinos are, I believe, naturally entrepreneurial. Right? And that's an opportunity as they start these companies, which has already happened many, many times. They might even go again to LAIC and get an undergraduate degree in entrepreneurship. And then they're equipped not only with the natural ability, but with the skills, the talents, and the experience to go out and be successful. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't work for a big company. I work for my own company, Slayton Capital. And there's a lot of wonderful things about being your own boss. Of course, it's risky. Of course, it's like any job. There are upsides and downsides. But it's something that is a wonderful blessing for me. And I think for many Filipinos have experienced that and will experience that.
Now, you are a venture capitalist,
Yes,
as
sir.
you mentioned.
Yes,
now,
sir.
What is your impression on the Philippine startup ecosystem versus probably countries in the Southeast Asian region?
Yes. Well, the venture capital ecosystem has grown tremendously in every ASEAN nation, every Southeast Asian nation, even Vietnam, which used to be a communist country for a long time. I think the Philippines is in a stronger position than some of its ASEAN competitors for a variety of reasons, one of which, of course, is English. I mean, that's just very, very vital. You've got a lot of fine entrepreneurs down in Indonesia, a lot of them, in every nation in ASEAN. But again, probably because I'm a little bit more familiar with it and have been here, lived here, been here many, many, many times since I lived here back in the 80s. I'm bullish on the Philippines. I really am.
Okay, but I'm also wondering right now, do you think that the startup group is getting enough support from the government?
Well, that is a great question. And I would say probably not. And that's not to criticize the president or the Philippine government, but one thing that could be strengthened here is the judicial system, right? And that's something in the United States, and that's happened to me once. One time we had an investor who, entrepreneur who came to us who told us what was a false story. He had it extraordinarily well documented, had spent a lot of money on the scam. We invested, and it was a scam. Well, this is one of the great risks in my industry, right?
Right.
But we could sue him, and fairly quickly that case came to court, and he lost. See, that is a wonderful thing. When I lived here many years ago, and I believe it's, from what I understand, still the same, it's not easy to take somebody to court and actually get a trial date and get a judgment and get that guy either repaid or in jail or whatever it might be. So having a strong judicial system is an independent judicial system is critical part of the whole entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Okay, let's talk about that entrepreneurial ecosystem more later. But for the meantime, we will take a brief pause from our interesting exchange. But when we return, can the Philippines become the next regional hub? What global trends should we prepare for? Stay with us. More insights from Ambassador Sladen after the break. We are back on Follow the Money and our conversation with former U.S. Ambassador and venture capitalist Gregory Sladen. Before the break, we explored how the Philippines can ride out the global trade instability and attract long-term investment. Now, Ambassador, you've emphasized a values-based leadership. How can Filipino entrepreneurs lead with integrity while still scaling globally?
Well, thank you very much. It's a great question. And actually, leading with integrity is critical to long-term success. And there's a lot of cases. I'm a Harvard Business School guy. I teach at Harvard from time to time. And there are a lot of case studies where people take a shortcut. You know, they cheat their partners, or they cheat the government, or they cheat their employees, or whatever. And yes, in the short term, that can increase your bank account.
Yeah.
But in the long term, it almost never works. In fact, of the last 10 huge financial disasters, think about Enron and others, right? Those were all perpetrated by men, and mostly men, few women, but mostly men, who completely lost their moral compass. They completely lost any kind of values about integrity, about, you know, excellence, about working with partners and being, you know, do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. That's
Exactly.
integral, that's critical to the ecosystem of any economy. And again, just to mention LAIC, Life Academy International College, that's something that's woven into the fabric of the courses and of the degree, the importance of integrity, the importance of looking to long-term success. You know, success is not just what happens this year or 5 years from now. What happens in 10, 20, 30 years? What kind of reputation do you have? Are people interested in doing business with you,
Yeah.
right? Or not, right? And then, of course, what happens to your family and your community? That's all about integrity.
Now, how can the Philippines position itself as a strategic partner for both the U.S. and Asian trade, tech, and investment?
Yes, well, the Philippines already is a strategic partner for the U.S. You've seen more and more inbound investment from the U.S. I think part of that, of course, is because we've been critical allies for, you know, since the Second World War, even before before the Second World War, and a lot of Americans are comfortable here. You know, very comfortable. So I think if the Philippines continues on its course, it will attract more and more direct investment from the U.S. and nations like Singapore. Just like the U.S., the average wage in Singapore, and also the constraints on land and space, and don't allow large-scale, low-wage manufacturing. Just don't allow it, right? But that's perfect for the Philippines. The Philippines can do that and provide good jobs for its people, and still be very, very competitive in both the goods and services sectors.
Now, how would you assess the current Philippine investment climate from a global investor's point of view?
I am, as I mentioned earlier, I'm bullish on the Philippines. I really am. There are risks in every market, and there's certainly risks here in the Philippines. But I am bullish about the prospects for the future. And I am an investor in the Philippines. We have a couple of our portfolio companies are here and do business here. So I'm not just talking; I'm actually doing. Right. And again, to go back to LAIC, one of the things that's great about the Philippines is an excellent educational system, at least in the higher ed. I am a graduate of UP Diliman, and I teach here at Life Academy International College. And that is so important because no matter how much natural talent you have, you need training, you need experience, and you need mentorship. One of the things that really makes a difference as an entrepreneur is, do you have a mentor? Do you have a few mentors, right? And I always suggest to my students, get a mentor. It's one thing that is automatic with LAIC. Every student has a mentor, and that I think is fantastic because it's not just theoretical anymore. It's actual practical hands-on training.
Now that you mentioned that you have invested here in the Philippines, how do you know that a startup is worth investing?
Great question. We have our own methodology. Every venture firm has its own methodology. And our methodology follows three key factors. Number one, is it a really large total addressable market? What's called the TAM, right? And if it's not multi-billion-dollar total addressable market, we're not investing, right? That's just, for us, that's a critical component. Number two, is the product or service truly groundbreaking? Is it a 10x improvement in quality, in speed, in cost, right? Is there a 10x improvement for the user from the product we're looking to invest in over the current, whatever the current product is in the market? And is that a sustainable competitive advantage? Is this something easily copied, right? Because if it is, we don't want to invest. Because when there are too many competitors around, the price goes down. Or is this something that can really, the competitive advantage can be sustained? And the third thing is a really high quality team that works together. One thing we don't mind is if someone has had what we call an honorable failure, that's not a black mark. In some parts of the world, it is a black mark. But in Silicon Valley, it's not. And for us, it's not. Someone that has tried, has done his or her best, it didn't work out, but it's an honorable failure. In fact, we look at that in a positive way because that individual is more likely to succeed the next time around from everything they've learned.
Well, given that, I want to ask you for your advice to Filipino entrepreneurs who are planning to go globally as well.
Yes.
What can you tell them?
Well, first of all, make sure your product is successful here, right? Because you need a strong foundation. Then pick your market. Don't say, well, I'm going to go everywhere. No, nobody can go everywhere, right? You have to pick your market, whether it's Canada or Hong Kong or Australia. Pick your market. Pick, again, a large market where your product or service is distinctly better than what is available there. Or pick a target market, maybe the Filipino-American community. Maybe that's where you want to market. That's 2 or 3 million people in the United States are of Filipino heritage, which is wonderful. So choose your target market carefully. Really make sure that your product or service meets a need substantially better than whatever product or service they're using today, and then go at it full force. I want to just give a little advice to everybody who's watching. Success is about three things: competence, character, and commitment. You got to have those three things. It's something that's taught at LAIC, but at many other places too. You've got to have character, commitment, and competence for success.
I wish we could have longer conversation, Ambassador, but thank you for coming here this afternoon. Now, from trade strategy to ethical investment and innovation, these conversations show that if the Philippines continues adapting to global trends, it has the potential to take the lead. Ambassador Gregory Staton, thank you again for your insights into how emerging economies like the Philippines can rise in today's competitive environment. Before we go, here is a reality we all face daily. In the words of English economist and philosopher John Maynard Keynes, the difficulty lies not so much in developing new ideas as in escaping from old ones. And that's it for today's edition of Follow the Money. I'm Gerg Cahiles. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel, always on top.